Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I'm 𝘁=𝘁 and my mission is to inspire you to grow, stand out, and take action towards the next level of your life. I interview leaders, authors, successful entrepreneurs, spiritual teachers, exceptional people who will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week and make sure you subscribe to get them as soon as they are released. This is the second half of the fascinating conversation with Sébastien Fouillade. If you haven't listened to the first part, go back to episode 145 and listen to it. It will provide some context which I believe is absolutely necessary in order to get the most out of this part of the conversation. Enjoy.
You know, another experience I had, I was able to see the relationship between Mother Earth and us through our lungs. And I was seeing that there was that symbiotic relationship of us breathing the air that comes from all around us. And I could see all those little trees in my lungs created by Mother Nature, because we are, and interacting with that oxygen. And I had that message at that point that we were living the unconditional love of Mother Nature with every breath that we take, and all the harm we do to the planet. It's like we have to remember that it's like there's that love all the time, every breath we take. This is something that's relationship that's developed over, you know, like thousands, millions of years. And those are the kind of spiritual, you know, soul. I don't know if it's the soul at that point, but it's the core, the essence of who you are. You get those experiences and those lessons in a very vivid, experiential way. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's transformative to the soul.
If I were to ask you, so who is it for? Who should consider it?
Well,
I see you laughing.
I'm laughing because it's a tricky question.
It's not for everyone, is it?
Well, it's for when people are ready. I don't think, I wouldn't look at it as it's for everyone or some people. There's also a readiness aspect to it.
Yes.
And the other thing is, the psychedelics is just a substance. The awakening can also be reached with breath work. And so I kind of also look at it as like everybody is on their own spiritual journey, and they will find something that will expand them at one point, and they'll get to another level in that journey. And psychedelics can be helpful, breath work can be helpful, sensory deprivation tanks can be helpful. So I wouldn't say it's for everybody. I said it's for, you know, if you kind of feel like it's on your journey. I like to harmonize my journey, meaning I like to build to it. I'm not necessarily in a rush. I did yoga, I did meditation. I've done toad, I've done mushrooms, but like all of these came at the right time, and I didn't necessarily rush to them. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that worry me, where when celebrities come out and say, well, you know, I did toad and it changed my life. I'm like, yes, this is what worked for you, and it's great you're educating people on it, but please also educate them that there's many things they could do to change their lives, and there's many paths to get there. And there's also what I like to say, there's eating your vegetables before you get to your dessert. Like there's a lot of things you can do in your life to improve your life that have benefits spiritually, before you jump to psychedelics. So
Thank you.
It's not a black and white answer.
I was not expecting a black and white answer, and you actually gave me a very good answer. And I will let me flip that question, even if you might answer the same thing. But is there someone who is not for? Is someone listening to this intrigued in a way, but maybe not for them?
Yeah, there's conditions. I think bipolar disorders.
Okay.
There's different sets of conditions that people might have that you wouldn't want to do psychedelics on. And I'm not an expert in that part. So like people need to research that. It's like if they have a certain condition, they should see, hey, is that for me or not? There's also like medications, medicine people might take, over-the-counter medicine that would have really bad interactions with psychedelics. So it's really important to research that as well. And I don't want to say anything here because I'm not the specialist there, and there's a lot of resources online to help people with that. And what's interesting is in Peru, kids do ayahuasca.
Oh, really?
Little kids in ceremonies, they'll join. They'll have a little cup, and because they have a lot less baggages in their mind, it's a lot easier for them to do it than grown-ups. Or maybe because they're already connected with that magical way to look at the world. So, that's another stigma we have. It's like, well, kids shouldn't be doing it. It's like, no, there's cultures where kids do it. And so, yeah, even pregnant women have done ayahuasca. And the babies are amazing. So.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask you also about what happens once you've had this experience, because you mentioned the word integration earlier on, and I'm very curious. So you have these lessons, as you call them, which I suppose they can be very profound inside of you, rather than just listening to someone saying, oh, that was a lesson is one thing, but really living it in your core, in your being, it sounds like something very profound. What do you do with those lessons? How do you apply them, or what kind of applications they have in, the personal life, the professional life, or the other elements of your life apart from the spiritual?
Yes, all of that. I use journaling a lot to write my experiences after a ceremony, and by journaling, you're actually able to remember things that you wouldn't be able to remember otherwise, because it helps you kind of follow the stream of what happened. And it's like, oh, and this happened. In fact, in ceremonies, you'll get so much information. Sometimes it's hard to remember everything that you got. And so like my latest ceremonies, it's like, just try to remember 3 things that are really important to you, that you want to carry forward. And yeah, those lessons for integration is a huge topic of like how to integrate that back in life. Journaling is a good way, because I try to write, this is the lesson I got. And it might be, I need to play more music to my daughter. I need to show my kids that I appreciate them more. And so there are little things like that where I turn maybe a very deep experience into an action. Or helping people. Like that was a big one. It's like, if I get a lesson that tells me you should help people, or you should sing more, it's like, okay, I need to try to be creative in my life and see me. The other thing is sometimes people don't have the support to integrate their learnings and to turn it into actions and follow through. I mean, it's basically creating a development plan after your ceremony of like, what did I learn? What am I going to do about it? How do I follow through? And having the discipline to do that. So it's interesting because integration is important, but I don't know if it's necessarily as difficult as it might sound. It's more of a matter of discipline and being organized. It might be difficult in the sense of if you identify the problem with your relationships, which is a lesson that can happen where it's like, oh, wow, there's this dark energy here in my life. I need to stop that relationship. Well, that's hard because you have to stop that relationship and you have to follow through with it. So from that perspective, you might need some support to do that. And also the other thing that happens is as you get further away from the medicine ceremony, you might question yourself because you get pulled back into the routine. So the journaling is a way to kind of go back and reaffirm your trajectory and go back to what you wrote. And so there's different ways to approach it. Like for me, for my work, because I build products, it's been really helpful, kind of bring empathy, even more empathy into my work, and realizing that people who use our products have their own lives. They have their own things going on, and it doesn't necessarily revolve around technology or our products. So when they use our product, they want the product to be invisible and easy to use. And what psychedelics often help you do is see other people's perspectives. So you kind of develop that muscle a little easier and easier every time you do a ceremony. And then you can use that in your work to get into other people's shoes. So, yeah.
There are so many things that come to mind, and I'm trying to keep a direction to the conversation and not jump around.
Oh, that's okay.
But I also wanted to discuss a little bit, because we mentioned initially the term psychedelics, and then there was more of a sole focus on ayahuasca. So in a nutshell, or briefly, can you tell me about other psychedelics? Do they all belong, shall we say, in the same group, and ayahuasca is at the apex, or is there different potencies, different things? Because we use the term psychedelics, so I'm wondering what else is there that you could be talking about apart from ayahuasca?
Ayahuasca for me played a very big role in my spiritual development and also creative development, because I play music during ayahuasca ceremonies. But there's other psychedelics. I want to be careful for listeners who are big on words, but like magic mushrooms are fungi medicine, not plant medicine. And so there's this fungi medicine, magic mushrooms, which are amazing as well. And I've also attended magic mushroom ceremonies as well. And it's been very transformative, but it's different.
How are they different? I'm curious. How is it different?
It's your experience is different. So for me, ayahuasca is a very internal. So it's hard because there's the whole set and setting aspect of psychedelics, which basically explains that the substance is only part of the bigger equation that results in the experience you have. And the mindset and the setting in which you're in also has a huge impact on that. So you could do magic mushroom at a Grateful Dead concert, or you could do magic mushroom in the context of a ceremony. where you might be with a group of people. You pray at the beginning. You play some music. There might be some incense, and it's a completely different experience than the Grateful Dead concert.
Yes.
And the result will be different. And so, like, when you compare them, you have to also compare the set and setting as well. In my experience, there's many differences between magic mushrooms and ayahuasca, but you can also use them in similar set and setting. Other differences is how it impacts your senses, how it impacts your visual senses, even auditory senses, how you process information while you're on the psychedelic is slightly different. For ayahuasca, it's a much more of an inward journey for me. For magic mushrooms, it's a much more connected outward journey where it actually breaks reality. Like if you have magic, if you take magic mushrooms, you have a lot more visual artifacts around you where you almost feel like reality is changing. But you can also get that with ayahuasca under the right condition. And I've lived that as well with ayahuasca. And then there's LSD, which is different because it lasts like 12 hours versus magic mushrooms would last 6 hours. But with LSD, you get a huge, at least for me, like huge creative boost, and lots of creative energy. If you play music, so I love playing music, and I never know what I'm going to play before I play it. The tunes I play with each of the medicines are completely different, and the path it opens up for the music, because as I play, I see different pathways. And the pathways that I would get with LSD, with mushroom, with ayahuasca are completely different. And then the biggest one for me is the toad medicine, which is 5-MeO-DMT, and that's the one Mike Tyson talks a lot about. And that one is about 30 minutes to an hour. And it's something you inhale and you basically just vanish. You disappear. You're like gone. And it can be very intense for some people in the sense that they don't even remember what happens. They might have been screaming. They might have been feeling like they were dying. Really intense experiences. And that's the one where it's taken many years to develop a relationship with the medicine. And then there's other medicines like peyote that open your heart, and you can use that for prayers. And it's the most beautiful prayers possible. So.
Peyote, now that you said it, was the first psychedelic that I read about when many years ago, when I was reading Carlos Castaneda, and he was talking about a Mexican shaman who was using peyote mushrooms. So I remember that term from there. It's what you were saying right now makes me understand very clearly that what we were talking about, the intention behind what you're doing, and also you said about the setting, the environment where you are when you have that experience, are extremely important, and they can really create a transformational, beautiful experience, or something on the other side of the experience. And I will not use
I've had
words.
the other side.
Is there is One more thing I want to ask about psychedelics, Sebastian, and then there are some other things that I also want to discuss with you before we run out
Yeah.
of time, and that is your work now that you have taken on this mission that was given to you, and um, you work with other innovators in this field to can you explain a bit more of what it is that you do in this field of bringing awareness to the people?
Yeah, I do a few things. One is I work with a retreat center in Peru called the Earth Medicine Experience. And so, of course, with the COVID pandemic, this has been extremely challenging on us because there was Peru had one of the most restrictive quarantine law in effect, where they use the army, and so there was no tourism basically for the last year. So we're starting again. We're doing retreat, and so here what we're doing is I'm working there as kind of the narrative creator, communication, marketing, and creative director, where I help the retreat center tell their stories and ensure that we have beautiful experiences for people who come to visit us. And we keep our journeys, our retreats small to like 8 people, and we put a lot of focus on the individual. So that's one way I'm helping here, make them successful and have more people experience the medicine. But traveling to Peru isn't for everyone. Not everybody can afford it or make the time for it. The other thing I do, and I started doing that 6 months ago, is advising companies in the space who want to, advising them on their strategy, advising them on their products, their platform. And when I talk about advising, again, it's kind of funny because it all goes back to creating a journey for somebody, whether it's through the use of psychedelics, or whether it's looking at a user interface, or whether it's looking at a strategy and an entire customer journey of like from the time where they learn about your company to the time where they use your product a lot. This is what I've been doing with companies, and some of those companies are really small. Some of them have been in business for like 10 years in the space, and will basically look and get into the mind of the customer, and also I look for authenticity in what the company is doing, and sometimes challenge them on what it means to stay authentic and to help your users and to follow your path. And I try to avoid companies that just get in the space because they see a growth opportunity or a potential return on investment. And it's hard. There's a lot of nice people that are getting in that space right now just because of the growth opportunity. And I'm really interested in helping the companies that are getting in the space and have some experience working with psychedelics, at least at the founder level, and are really wanting to change the world. And so that's that I'm doing on the side of my day job at Microsoft, where in my day job I'm building products for enterprises to help leadership communicate with their users, and to help users have great experiences with their enterprise platform. And so it's not as exciting necessarily in a way as the work with psychedelic companies, but it's exciting in the way that I can use a lot of what I learn through psychedelics to get into the shoes of the users and to also reach higher. Because one of the messages I got with psychedelics is when we come together, we can accomplish amazing things, beautiful things. Some of the things I've seen were like cathedrals made out of glass that were gigantic. And I was like, like we can accomplish and build those things. We have the vision, we have the possibility, we can come together. We need to do that more, and we need to raise the bar for ourselves and not sell ourselves short. And that's one of the things that I tried to bring at my work, to push people for just reaching higher, doing better, and building more quality software.
If I were to ask you 10 years from now, where do you see things, or where would you like to see things in this regard?
Oh, it's a good question, because there's that desire in our society to think with the end in mind, and it's the expectation. It creates an expectation.
Yes.
And I actually like intent with that expectation. So I honestly don't know. I see myself on the path today, but having grown, and maybe it's a different path, but I see myself still as authentic in 10 years from now. And that's really what I want to do, is I want to stay authentic and true to myself. And 10 years from now, I want to feel like the last 10 years I've been authentic, I've helped people, and I've really opened my heart to be true to myself. That's really where I see myself. I don't, I don't have a specific goal, like, well, in 10 years, I'm going to have 2 houses and 3 boats and 5 cars. Like, that's not, it's more like in 10 years, I'll be even more authentic than I am now. Or I don't know if there's a way to be more authentic, but I would be happy I followed the path. That's where I want to be.
Sure. I appreciate your answer. Even though I meant more in terms of psychedelics rather than your own personal life, but I get what you're saying, that you immediately create an expectation, and expectation by its definition can, not always, but it can really rob you of the journey towards there, the present moment, by constantly looking at the expectation. So
it's balance, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I can't have no expectations. And in terms of psychedelics, I think, my experience is going to continue to grow, and I'm going to continue to help people. That's where I'll be 10 years from now, is helping more people, either here or in Peru, playing more music. I love playing music. So
I've watched some of your videos with the harmonica. By the way, it's quite funny when you look at how you do the visual effects as well. Sebastian, there is one last thing I wanted to ask. There is something that you mentioned earlier, and I wanted to clarify that for myself, most of all. You mentioned transcendental meditation that you have been practicing for years, and you said you would get lost. What is, in your experience, the difference between transcendental meditation and some other kind of meditation, for example, focusing on the breathing, or on the palms of the hands, or something like that?
There's more complex meditations where there's a certain process you have to follow to peel different layers. I think with transcendental meditation, it's actually very simple. You have your mantra, and you let the mantra do its work by kind of repeating it and having it disappear in your subconscious, and then kind of cleans things away. And you accept the thoughts that come in, and it's very simple, and it doesn't necessarily have like a very strict position you need to get into in order to do it. And then I've been reading a lot of Buddhist magazines, and they have very rigorous meditation practices. to achieve different goals. So there's lots of different flavors. I think what's nice with the transcendental meditation is it's very approachable. You can learn it quickly, and a lot of it, meditation in all its flavors, it's you have to make room for it in your schedule. You have to repeat it. Like, you won't get results right away. I mean, if you do, it's great. Some people will, but you have to repeat it. And what's nice with a simple practice like transcendental meditation is you just need to do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. And that's it. If you can make that time, you don't have to be hard on yourself or anything. And some other practices that require just more prep, more work, more time. So I think it's finding what works for you. TM was on my path and I embraced it. I'm curious about other modes, and I've actually even practiced other modes of meditation myself, like with the breath work. I do breath work in the morning, and it gets me to some great states as well. But it's just different tool, different purpose.
Different, that's what I get. You also mentioned for a different thing earlier that it is in your path. So you had this tool and that tool. Those are the tools that you found in your path, and they were the appropriate ones for you. So I kind of get that as a message between the lines. Not, you didn't say that explicitly, but that's my understanding of some things that you say. So I appreciate that. Sebastian, I would like to also ask you some quick fire questions to start wrapping this conversation up. And my first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
I was waiting for that one.
You said you listened to the...
Yeah, I said I listened to your previous shows. And, when I first heard it, I was like, But you know what it means to me? It's honoring myself. It's honoring who I can become as an individual, and working toward that, whether it's like spiritually, physically, as a dad, and so personal development, it's really working on reaching that potential, reaching my full potential. And I kind of like to also call out, it's not about biohacking. It's not about pushing myself beyond that potential, because I do believe we all have great potential without the need to do hacks. And so that's what it means to me.
Thank you. And if you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self, what piece of advice would you give him?
Oh, I've answered that before by saying, have some magic mushrooms. But it's interesting because I don't know if I tell my 18-year-old to have some magic mushrooms. It's interesting. I'm seeing my 16-year-old right now, who's blowing me away because my friend Chris is helping him with some personal training. And he's got that grit. And I'm like, what would I tell my 18-year-old when I see what my 16-year-old is doing? I might tell him, like, work out a little bit more, take care of yourself, look into meditation, try out yoga, enjoy life. Don't have such high expectations of yourself. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but sometimes if they're too high, you can kind of torture yourself because they're not realistic. And so I would say, just make room in your life and take care of yourself. And, you brought up personal development. I might tell my 18-year-old, I was like, hey, think about doing some personal development in a good way, not necessarily as a too serious way. And so it's nice. Slow down. I would tell him to slow down. That's actually the biggest thing I would tell him, because I see my 16-year-old and he's like, dude, like, you need to slow down. Like, slow down and focus more on the moment and the depth. But I don't, it's a really hard question, because at 18, I don't know if I would want to slow down. And I think the maturity I have now is because of the hardship I went through and all those years. So anyway, I haven't found a perfect answer yet for my 18-year-old.
It's for me, it's a very interesting question, because you can get all sorts of different answers. So, and it's common that 18-year-old self would probably not listen to anything we have to say to them. But
exactly,
that's a different thought, because we are old men to them. So
it's like, I know you're not going to listen, but
Sébastien, emerging from this conversation that we had, if you were to give to the listener one actionable item, something they can implement today or tomorrow and make a step towards improving their life, what would you tell them?
Identify where you are in your spiritual journey, what that means for you, and what is that next step you'd like to take? And I'm keeping it broad here, because everybody's on a different path on their journey. So if you haven't tried yoga and you think of yoga with a certain stigma, maybe try yoga and see what it does for you. If you haven't tried meditation, maybe try it. If you've tried all those things and you haven't tried cannabis, and you do your research and you can do it, try it with meditation. Some of those things is figure out what that next step, and don't obsess necessarily about reaching a certain goal at a certain speed, because I do believe if it's meant to happen, it will happen, and you don't have to necessarily rush toward it. Like, you have to be healthy first. So it's like, figure out where you're at in your journey, set your compass, and start walking. That would be my ask, and be true to yourself. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Is like, look inside and work on identifying what are you keeping away because of trauma, because of stigma. What are you keeping away and what is keeping you away from being your authentic self? Like, those are the things that I would ask people to think about as actionable.
And if I can, thank you. And if I can add to what you just said, the last bit is that when you keep yourself, you also keep yourself from the world. You don't allow others to benefit from your divine presence, if I can use that word, because we've been talking about spirituality anyway. So yes.
I do want to add one last thing,
Sure.
And this is actually a beautiful experience I had. It was in one ceremony talking about the divine self and the whole. In one ayahuasca ceremony that my wife was next to me, and I was struggling a lot. I was going through a lot of struggle and trying to heal myself in the ceremony. And then I realized I could draw energy from the elements around me. I could draw energy from the water, be fluid like the water. I could draw energy from the mountain, be strong like the mountain. I could draw energy from my power animal, like the tiger, and be strong like the tiger, and it give me more energy. And then I went further, and I realized I could draw energy from the people around me, and I could actually find their skills and draw that energy. I realized I could draw energy from my ancestors, and I drew all that energy left and right, and I was sucking energy, and I was stronger. And then I realized we were all one, and we were all one entity, and that I didn't need to draw all that energy, because together we were strong. And when you talk about divine and next steps, and I think it's really important to remember the power of the connections together, the one that we have. And there's a lot of obsession sometimes about drawing energy, like I was doing in that ceremony. And I was focused on that. And when I realized we were one, I reached the peace. And so, that's another thing I'd like to leave people with, because it was a very powerful message. I haven't shared that in other podcasts, but I thought about it this morning. I was like, that's really important, because sometimes we feel like we need to draw from something, when if you have a family, you have that unit, that energy together, that in and of itself, it has energy.
Where will you direct people who want to find out more about you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there, because I think there's a lot of corporate people that need to hear that message, and LinkedIn is a good platform for it. And then I've got my website, which is 𝘁𝗸𝗲.com. That's FOOYAD.com. That's the phonetic spelling of my last name. And it's got links there to my book, to the videos where I played harmonica. I'll have a link to our podcast on there as well. So that's the best way.
Is there anything you were really hoping we would discuss today and we completely missed it, Sébastien?
I could have talked more about music and the importance of music and ceremonies, and how that completely transformed my perception of music, listening to music and ceremony, and how much it is a tool and how important it is. Listening to somebody playing guitar during an ayahuasca ceremony is one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had in my life. You can hang on every single note and glide, and it is so powerful, so cleansing, so beautiful. And playing music, which is something I've done myself during ceremony, is a gift that I humbly receive. It helps you take people places and helps them heal and all that. And the importance of music and ceremony as a tool to heal people cannot be understated. And it's something that I wish everyone could experience in their life, because it's very transformative. So I don't think we touched on that, and just wanted to call that out.
Absolutely. Sébastien, this has been one of the most intriguing conversations for me. I really enjoyed it from the beginning, even before we started recording. It was so many things that were of great importance, I think. So thank you very much for your insights and your time. I want to wish you all the best with your mission to share this message with the world. Any last parting words?
Oh, thank you, Aggie, for having me. This was a great conversation. I hope people enjoyed it and they can take something from it in their journey. So, and don't hesitate, anyone, to reach out to me. I will respond. And, I really appreciate when people reach out. If they read the book, I love to hear what they thought. And so, yeah, reach out. I'm approachable.
I appreciate you listening. If you enjoyed it, please share this episode with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to support my podcast and gain access to exclusive content from me and my guests, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/PDMPAT. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.